the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People City Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
Nebraska Veterans Aid is here for veterans and dependents facing unforeseen financial emergencies. Get assistance with food, fuel, shelter, clothing, transportation, and even funeral and medical expenses. If you're a veteran facing a financial emergency, apply for Nebraska Veterans Aid through your county veteran service officer. Learn more at veterans.nebraska.gov/NVA. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council. Live from the heart of Lincoln, America, welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back in. Harrison Arens still on the board, going to go solo for this hour, and we're just going to dive into more Husker football. Week 3 fall camp started off awfully hot. At least it's cooled off a little bit for the guys out there now with a ton of rain in the mix. But with that being said, we still got plenty of Matt Rule quotes to get to. We talked plenty Troy Dannon, and in my mind, you guys can disagree. 402-464-5685. I think he's done a phenomenal job. You know, it's tough to come into a program where you're just about to start this major renovation that is the Memorial Stadium, and he walks out in the middle of it. And you have Troy Dannon. He's got to come in there and try to put the pieces together. And that's easier said than done. So I know some people, they want that stadium renovation now. There's a lot of stuff that needs money. And don't forget how much money we just put into all the facilities, the real grass, the training table. You guys can go check it out. Awesome stuff. I don't know if the boosters have unlimited pockets, and that's the other part of it. So he's definitely going to do it. It's part of that end goal, and it's no longer just the south side of the stadium. You know, he mentioned it north, south, west, east, like the entire thing. They're thinking big picture here. So if you're thinking big picture, it's going to take a little bit more time than if it was just dealing with the south stadium. And, you know, with Trev Alberts, they were going to basically free up some room. was their mindset, and suffer a little bit at the average attendance, which isn't a major deal, but to me, it didn't feel, I don't know how much of a major update that really was either. If we're going to do it, I like, going all in for it, but unfortunately, that requires a little bit of patience as well. But that's where I landed on Troy Dana. I think he's done a really good job. I think it's a tough thing to walk into, and I think he's managed it all pretty well up until this point. So we'll keep seeing. Obviously, he's still the AD here. He's still got time to make errors and make more great moves. But so far, it's been way more positive than bad. And then when you hear the student athletes, how pretty much they've all had at least one interaction with him, at least he's not a AD hiding in the shadows. And it feels like we've had some of those ADs before. Not necessarily Trev Alberts. I think Trev Alberts was out there and vocal enough, which was good to see. But Troy Danon's pretty similar so far in terms of being open out there in the public and answering the public's questions. Can't say that for all the previous ADs. But that being said, though, we're going to switch things over to Matt Rule. Like I said, week 3 fall camp, and let's just get right to it. This is Rule being asked, what are the biggest takeaways from fall camp so far?
I thought we were really, 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 really efficient on offense. I thought we were able to both run the ball and throw the ball. The one caveat to that is that when the quarterback's not live, sometimes guys are blitzing and running by, and I'm saying stay off them. So, to stop a guy like Dylan, you're going to have to get to the quarterback and affect the quarterback. So there's probably a lot of plays where, guys are blitzing, they have to pull up. And I just think on defense, a lot of good things being done on defense. I just think we have to continue to tackle. We have some elite running backs, and it's really hard to tackle those guys. And so our tackling is something that has to improve based upon, we did a Wednesday short yardage live period and today's live period. And we just need those reps. It's the first week of tackling. We're going to have to really improve that this week. You think about it, really 5 more practices till training camp is over and 9 practices until we start game week. So when I say over, like next Saturday, kind of as you get in the next week, you start a little bit of game planning for 4 days and then game planning full out. So we have a real sense of urgency, and I think tackling is probably the main thing. And then we got some punt, we got some field goals. Really pleased with the field goal operation today. And it looked like the punt. I've never enjoyed the punt periods in my life, but it's my favorite period of practice right now. I just could watch Archie punt all day. I've never seen anything like it. So it's like watching a YouTube short. I mean, the guy's amazing. So what he does. So I used to walk over the O-line during punt period, or we kind of stand to the side. Now I'm out there like with popcorn because it's really a fun thing to watch. I hope we don't punt a lot, but when we do, it'll be fun.
There you have it. Quick update on everything he's seen through fall camp thus far. He mentioned that they still got quite a bit to go yet. This is only week 3. But when you think about it, quite a bit to go, but not a lot all at the same time. Before you know it, they're going to be out there in Kansas City playing Cincinnati. And that's a big game. We've talked about before. We talked about the first hour. Cincinnati's going to have their back to the wall. That's kind of a prove it or lose it year for Cincinnati's head coach. I think those guys need to have an improvement. Obviously, they don't need to go to the college football playoffs or anything, but they need to show improvement, that this team is going in the right direction. And Nebraska, I'll say it again, it's been a bad team to brag about. Like it's unfortunately been a team where you beat Nebraska and you would have teams put it on their resume. Like, what a great win. And it kind of got to a point where it's like, how great of a win is it if we're just winning 3 games? And last year we finally went bowling again. So hopefully we're back to that point where it is a very respectful win. And I think that's why you see the 80 of Colorado during the Big 12 media days kind of call that out there in some sidebar interviews. Like, I would love to play Nebraska every single year because, hey, it's a big win for Colorado. In the Big 12, you're not going to get that competition. You're going to meet definitely some good teams, but more often than not, you're not going to meet teams that are really going to boost you in that AP pool playing those conference opponents. So it makes a ton of sense. If you're Colorado, let me get Nebraska in here. That's a great win for us that can set us up and give us that edge we need to be one of the Big 12 teams going to the college football playoffs, because we got to win against a Big 10 team, and a good Big 10 team at that. Hasn't always been a good Big 10 team, but if you're trusting in the Rule year 3, some people are off the wagon, then it makes total sense why Colorado want to try to schedule that one in there. Give yourself a respectable win so you can go ahead and bang on that drum later in the season. If you only got a couple of 2-3 losses, you can point to that as a good win, as why you should belong in the college football playoffs. So let's talk about Archie Wilson, the punter from the Australian, about how good of a punter he is. It's crazy. I don't think I can remember anybody. He kicks with both legs. So he can walk right and boom it with his right. He can walk left and boom it with his left. And you know, Mike Eckler, that's kind of why he had to go to the portal early. He likes those types of punters. Into his mind, he makes his special teams a lot more lethal. And I don't think anyone's really to doubt Mike Eckler right now. I think a ton of us are happy that he's in the building. It's good to hear good stuff from the punter, because that's, again, special teams has been such a thorn in Nebraska's side. Last year showed improvements at times, but then all of a sudden it kind of started falling apart again. And that's why Ed Foley is still on staff and no longer that special teams coordinator, because it just was way too inconsistent. You know, you fix one thing, you fumble, muff a punt. Okay, you got the punts down, you're leaky on, you know, kickoff coverage. And you're like, that Colorado game always sticks out to me. We struck first, nice and early. We put it up 7-0. And it might have been Weaver. Someone, we kick it off and they bring it back about all the way to our 30-yard line. And then our defense, as great as it was last year, put up a stand. But those are the momentum shift plays where all of a sudden it's 7-0. They get that one at 7-7. And who knows how the rest of that first half plays out. Because if you look at that second half, when the momentum was still there, but we wasn't as fiery and electric, we kind of coasted. You know, we didn't do a whole lot in that second half. And as great as the first half was, and overall, it's still a great win. I'm not just going to poo-poo on the entire thing just because of a lackluster second half. Like, those momentum shifting plays will absolutely swing a game. And Colorado is one of those teams, like especially last year with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. I know their offensive line was atrocious, but they played through the skill guys. You mess up on those special teams plays and you give a fiery team like Colorado or any of the powerhouse offenses, or at least the ones who have the capability to really light it up, it's just not a situation you want to be in. So it's good to hear that some real belief and faith in the punter, to the point to where he's eager to go and watch him because he thinks he's just been that phenomenal. Great to hear. You also hear him, you know, really talking about just tackling being an issue. And that's the biggest part that worries me out of all of this, because tackling it's really tough to tell if it's bad coaching, if it's just players not being locked in. But there's been a few games last year. I always think of the UCLA game. That was pretty atrocious in terms of Nebraska's tackling. There was times where it felt like UCLA was getting 5 yards after contact every single time because just we weren't wrapping up. Gang tackling was good, but at the same time, they weren't always wrapping up. They do a really good job all pursuing to the ball, but not always a great job finishing the play once they got there. And, you know, even if you don't get him down, hold on, wrap up, and let that gang tackling actually work. And that's just been a big problem for Nebraska. And you could probably a couple of years in a row now. I think it got a little bit better towards the end of the season, but again, it's a fresh season now. And then you heard that with Matt Rule. Just, you want to hope it's just that our running backs are so good, is that he hints at, you know, talking about Emmett Johnson. You know, he doesn't want to give any names, but you can imagine which running backs are in there. And you hope that those guys are just that elite, that those defenses are struggling so much, but it's also hard to believe. I mean, if you're a good tackling unit, unless we got, you know, a couple of Derrick Henrys back there, if you have the right pursuit angles and you allow your help to get there, they should be able to take those guys down. Now, to his point, just reps. You need a lot of reps. And in today's college football era, it's probably one of the toughest things to do. I've never coached at the college football level. You can probably take a wild swing at it. But to me, that'd be such a challenge, because with all the rules around how much contact players can and cannot have anymore, I don't know how much tackling drills you can really do to get those reps. And you don't want it to happen. You don't want those reps to be had in live fire. You want it to happen in practice. But again, with the rules around it, you kind of just have to go through that and trust you guys are putting in that work. And the biggest thing they can do is just really be taking those mental reps, you know, to really thinking about how they're processing it and what they're looking for when they're going for that tackle. So that's probably about the biggest concerning thing in there, was guys are struggling at tackling. And maybe it's because we have elite running backs, or maybe it is our defense just, once again, is really struggling at finishing the play. Illinois was another game, struggled there, tackling. Ohio State was, ironically, against a much better opponent, was one of our best games. We did a really good job wrapping up. There was Ohio State, especially in the run game. I mean, first contact, they were going down. They could not get away. And even if it wasn't a big hit, the guys in the middle in particular were doing an excellent job just wrapping up and letting the linebackers fill those gaps and just finish it. So hopefully it's not so much of bad tackling and more just really good backs and a lack of reps. And the reps are still to come. So hopefully they can get patched up. Because again, Cincinnati, you don't want to brush over them. But if you got a bunch of bad tackling throughout that entire game, it's not unfathomable that Cincinnati could find a way to pull out a sneaky upset. Again, lost to Georgia Southern in the past. We've lost to Troy. We've had so many games where we walk in thinking, on paper, this makes all the sense in the world. Nebraska's the favorite. Game plays out. We leave the stadium dumbfounded with our jaws on the floor, asking, like, how in the world did this happen? When ironically, we did the same thing last week. So I sound negative on it. I am optimistic on Matt Rule, but the tackling is a little bit concerning there. You just want to make sure that stuff's finely tuned before you get to the end of the season. Because again, Illinois really struggled there. UCLA really struggled there. USC really struggled there. And that's 1, 2, 3 losses. Rutgers, we did a phenomenal job. And that's why that game ended the way it did. It was a super low scoring game. Our offense couldn't pick up any rhythm, but because we're doing such a good job on tackling, even though they had Monangai out there who, he's on the Chicago Bears, Monangai looked incredible in the NFL. I shouldn't say incredible. He looked promising, for what he did. So, he was an NFL talent guy, but we did a good job. And a lot of it was just making sure that the first guy, if you can't get him down, wrap up. And the next guy, make sure your pursuit angle's clean, and then really work on that gang tackling. So we did see it pretty positive a few moments in last year, but there's also times where it fell apart. And the biggest thing from this was Matt Rule really just talking about the tackling, needing much more reps. Let's talk about the defensive line as well. We got a battle there going on. Here's Matt Rule on the defensive line battle.
Yeah, you have the jack position, which is like Deshaun. Yeah. I think you look at that jack position, it's Deshaun Willis, Jordan Ochoa, with Dylan Rogers making a real push right now. Really pleased with Dylan. You look at the you talked about, Riley, you talked about Keona's having a great camp. You talked about Cam, I think he's playing really good football. Will is, Will has all the physical gifts. It's just his focus has been his motor. I'm really pleased with his motor. He's flying around, tremendous pass rusher, tremendous run defender. He's coming on. I think you have some guys making steps. You have, David Hufkun, Sua Lafotu, Mason Goldman, Ashton Murphy. A lot of those guys are just young. And so they're still trying to figure out, am I good or not? You're good. Go play, right? You're good. So, and I don't want to, minimize some of the other guys that are playing. It's just, I think we have a lot of guys that are battling to get in the rep rotation. We're not going to be able to do like we did last year and play Ty and Nash, 55, 60 plays. We really didn't do that the first year, though. We had really good defense. We played guys 30 to 45 plays. So I think it'll be sort of that type of a deal. And then, we're playing a bunch of different fronts and personnel groupings. So John and Terry, Phil Simpson, sometimes we have 2 jacks on the field. Sometimes we have 4 pure D linemen on the field. So we're doing sometimes we have 5. So we're doing a bunch of different things to get players on the field and helping guys find their role. So I think a lot of those guys are coming on.
There you have it with Matt Rule talking, about some of those defensive line battles going on right now. Some of the young guys still just working on that confidence. And I can only imagine in the Big Ten, defensive line, offensive line, like that's probably going to be the area that requires the most confidence, because those are, especially when you get to some of those older seniors, some of those guys are damn near grown men at that point. And if you're a young guy coming out there 18, 19, even by the time you get to 20, 21, it takes a long time to get to that kind of physique. And those guys have been eating at the nutrition table. They've been lifting with the weight program. So that confidence takes a while to just believe in that athleticism and to believe like, I might not be there now, but if I keep working, I can't look like Ty Robinson, maybe by the end of my career, or even a Nash, or who knows, if you're a phenomenal edge rusher, maybe we're going to have the next Randy Gregory, just a freak athlete on the edge. So we want to get to that point to where obviously you want the guys to believe in themselves. And it's not a big surprise to hear that the younger guys are struggling. The other part of that intrigues me is, once again, you're hearing the idea of we're going to mix it up a lot out there. We're going to have different formations to allow different players to make their impact. And we kind of saw that with James Williams, at the end of last year. I know not everyone is super fond of him for the comments he made, like once he left, but he was kind of one of those rotational pieces. He was coming in there for a specific role, and you didn't see him out there all the time, but they knew what his strengths were and where he could be really useful. And they were absolutely right. I mean, he made some huge plays for us. So although he transferred, like, you get that mindset where it gives guys an opportunity where it feels like they may never hit the field, where even if thinking about transferring, because it feels like I got such a long road, I can't get out there until the guy ahead of me graduates. Mixing up enough different packages out there. And again, just rotating out some of those defensive linemen after a certain amount of snaps. It gives everybody a good feel that defense should be pretty active in terms of guys coming on and off the field, staying fresh and not getting too tired. we'll see what it looks like. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. We'll have to figure out more exactly what all these fronts look like and which guys he's really talking about. Again, talking about at times having two jacks out there. Who are those two guys? What's it look like? And who you're all pairing up and what situations. But that's Matt Rule on just some of those defensive line battles going on and some of the younger guys trying to figure out where their role is. And part of that process is finding the confidence to believe that you can fulfill that role and you can make your mark within that role. We got a few more here that we'll play before we send it to our first break here. We got more battles going on. Let's go to the left tackle battle. Let's switch sides of the ball here. Go from a defensive line to the offensive line. We got another battle going on at that left tackle position.
I don't think we're close to being settled. I don't think we're close to being settled at any point. I think really it comes down like this is like for the first assessment, right? This is like your midterm. Really, next week's scrimmage is kind of like your final, and you go from there. Pritchett's doing a really nice job. Gunner's doing a really nice job. And, as you know, at the other side, like if they're the two best tackles, we'll slide one over to right, so it's really a 4-way tackle battle with some other guys fighting to get in too, obviously, but Turner's getting more and more cleared every day. He was able to do the most amount of practice. He couldn't scrimmage with the most amount of reps yesterday that he could do in terms of some of the things he could get involved in. Teddy Prohaska is looking healthy and out there, and he's doing a nice job. Tyler Canuck's doing a nice job. So, I think this week is a really pivotal week. So I'll have to watch this tape to see. But I think, heading into this week, it's a really important time for all four of those tackles.
So you have it. We don't really know what this is going to look like really at all yet. He talked about it. It's like right now, the last scrimmage was the midterm. Upcoming here is going to be the final. So these positions are going to have to get solidified here pretty soon. And on the positive note, it sounds like Matt Rule feels like he's got enough great athletes where, he's got enough to where he's going to do what he can to get the best ones in there. And if he has to, just move some of those guys around. Sounds like, and then of course, you got some guys coming back off of injury as well, who have been part of the program for a long time. And, who knows how they look, especially once they're healthy. Are they going to be challenging for those spots? Now it's going to be tough. I mean, this late into fall camp, but if they come out and they just show up dominant and they've been taking care of their rehab, and because they have a better understanding of the offense and they really utilize it, it's good depth at the very least. So right news is that offensive line, although they might be trying to figure out who those starters are going to be, sounds like they should have some decent depth where they got multiple guys, especially if those guys can come back fully healthy. You have guys that even if they're not starting, like a Turner Corcoran, he's going to have the reps and snaps to where if you do run a situation where someone goes down, which inevitably it feels like every year we have a offensive lineman go through a pretty brutal injury. You have some guys with experience under their belt where you don't have to panic and you don't have to send, if you run the ball, you don't have to run to the opposite side every time because you got a new guy in there who just really doesn't have a ton of reps yet. So you like that. Sounds like they got some depth, and it sounds like the competition's still going on pretty fierce, and they're starting to figure it out, and they got another scrimmage coming up here. It's really going to solidify where they see these guys at and how they want to put them in there. And even if that means, moving guys to new spots that they're not maybe used to, but the coaches trust that they can definitely handle it. With that being said, we do got to throw the break. And again, another announcement for those wanting the Kansas City Royals. Weather was 2-0. We got Rule talking about the weather as well. Those guys had to practice around weather alerts. Obviously, you can imagine with 90 mile an hour plus winds, and I couldn't tell you with the tower how high those winds were with they were out. Still trying to work through it. Luckily, we got our guy, Eric. He's our ticket tech here. He's working those stuff out, working out the kinks. And then we will plan to have Royals back as soon as possible. And I do say it shouldn't take too much longer to get that up and ready for you guys. So if you're waiting for the Royals again, apologies. We'll try to keep working on that to get that tower fixed. But in the meantime, on the bright side, we do got local content here always. So 93.7 The Ticket, ticketfm.com. Harrison Arens going solo. We'll talk more Husker football on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Talk to you guys in just a little bit.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com, inviting you to join us here on 93.7 The Ticket every Saturday morning now in our new time. We're on from 8 to 9 with the weekly Husker Online radio show. We'll give you the latest in recruiting. We'll talk about what's going on with both football, basketball, and we'll probably share a few stories from the inside. It's every Saturday morning right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It's the Husker Online radio show from 8 to 9 a.m.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, Or you, your best man, your worst man. You, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids. First, I hold my hands out like they're on a steering wheel. Then I look over my shoulder. Next, I put it in reverse. Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
How is your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Nebraska Veterans Aid is here for veterans and dependents facing unforeseen financial emergencies. Get assistance with food, fuel, shelter, clothing, transportation, and even funeral and medical expenses. If you're a veteran facing a financial emergency, apply for Nebraska Veterans Aid through your county veteran service officer. Learn more at veterans.nebraska.gov/NVA. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here. I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? Or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Serve Nebraska believes that volunteers are part of what makes Nebraska great. Each year, the Step Forward Awards honors volunteers from across the state who serve their communities in outstanding ways. We hope you'll join us this year at the Step Forward Awards luncheon on October 27th in Omaha. Help us thank volunteers with a celebration to remember. To register, visit serve.nebraska.gov and click Register Now. We hope to see you there. Paid for by Serve Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Back to the Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back in. A quick reminder from everybody who wants their Royals. We do got Dan from Canopy. Unfortunately, I know you're a diehard Royals fan. It kills me for everybody. But like I said, Mother Nature stays undefeated. And unfortunately, we still have to wait for a part. Like I said, we got all that stuff figured out. It's just a matter of time, and we are starting actively working on it. We love the Royals. We love giving you guys the Kansas City Royals, but unfortunately, there's only so much you can do when you get those unfortunate, intense weathers that we did over the weekend. We got a couple of days in a row where just not great. Weather's so bad that you can't even get to the tower sometimes, check out what the hell's going on there. But I do got a score update for you. Bottom of the 6th inning. And then unfortunately, bummer we can't air for you guys. Super close game. 4-4, Kansas City Royals. Again, bottom of the 6th inning, facing off against the Washington Nationals. The Nationals 47-70. And of course, your Kansas City Royals 58-60. Just a couple games below 500. And they need this win. I mean, this is a game where if you're the Kansas City Royals getting down the stretch here, you need to start racking these wins up, put yourself above 500 and try to catch some momentum here. But then again, there's been a quick update on the Royals. Promise you guys, we are working on it. Just a matter of time. Amazon has not necessarily established the drone drop-offs or whatever that was supposed to be. We're supposed to you can get that stuff instantly. And like I said, it's not like can just go to the store and get a gallon of milk. This is technical equipment stuff that's not at your everyday stores to go and find. So we are waiting for it. And apologies as always, but you can't beat Mother Nature sometimes. And unfortunately, that was the case over the weekend. But I do feel pretty optimistic. We should have that for you guys, I believe, pretty soon here. Like I said, just a matter of time before we can get that part in for you guys. But 4-4, bottom of the 6th inning, that is the score as they are facing off against the Washington Nationals. And shout out to Dan from Campany. I will send duct tape and baling wires. I'll tell you what, bud, if you can figure it out with that stuff, we'll pay you whatever the parts cost. And we'll just act like that was the cost of the duct tape and baling wires that you got there. If anyone wants to go for it, you can contact Ticket FM and say you're an expert on fixing antennas and towers. But that being said, there's your update there. Just don't want to keep everybody sitting in the dust. I know it can be brutal sometimes if you're a big-time Royals fan, and I know we got a ton of them across the state of Nebraska, and you're waiting around through the ads, and then my voice comes on. You're like, who the hell is this guy talking to me? I want my Royals. I understand you want your Royals. Just want to give you an update as to where you might not be hearing your Kansas City Royals. But shout out for everybody who's sticking along and listening nonetheless. We are talking Husker football, though. That's the best thing I can do, the next popular thing I can do to keep the people intrigued throughout the night. And then, of course, we will have the best of the ticket. We'll play one of the better day shows as well to keep you guys at least with something local to make up for the Royals. But that being said, let's stick to Husker football here. We got Matt Rule on the running back room, and we just heard him talk about tackling, and he said it. I know we got some really great running backs, but tackling. We need reps. Sounds like we're missing a lot of tackles that should be gimmies. I mean, again, I used examples last year. UCLA, I'll say it, embarrassing. I think the players would probably say the same thing. They went out there. Their effort wasn't embarrassing. Their execution, I think they know they could have done better. I never want to challenge players' effort. Nobody wants to lose those games. The players want to lose those games the least. So I'm not ever going to attack their effort, but the execution. And a lot of that in today's college football is tough. You have these limitations on how much physical contact you can have. And, you can do mental reps for a lot of things. And you can do it for tackling. But doing mental reps with tackling it's possible, but it's very hard to mimic. Take it to boxing. You can box all you want. You can be a great shadow boxer. You get punched in the face, it's different. And that's the same thing with tackling. So hopefully they can continue to polish that through fall camp, or maybe, we just have some of the greatest running backs in the country. I'm willing to believe it's a little bit of both. We got really good backs, and we're also struggling with tackling. Here is Matt Rule, though, on the running back room.
No, yeah, there's a misconception out there. We got great backs. If anybody doesn't think we have three great backs, then can't wait for them to see these guys. I mean, Mosey's a dude. Mackay might be one of the fastest guys I've ever seen going from, first 5 steps. Now they have to go do it in the games, right? Like I'm just talking about in practice right now. I mean, but I think that's a loaded room for us. Kenneth Williams is out there balling. Connor Booth, tell you what, he's just gaining his stride right now. So Emmett obviously has like some pelts on the wall and some pedigree being out there, but Mosey and Mackay are making a tremendous push. Quinton's still out, so we're hoping we get Quinton back this week. But those other guys have just raced ahead, and they both can catch the ball out of the backfield, and they both can protect. EJ does such a good job, but you can't play on our offense if you can't protect, and so they do a nice job of that. But we moved Genatone over to tailback, so we have a 230-pound guy that runs 22.5, 22.5 miles per hour. So he had some good runs today, and we're hoping he can. I'm hoping he can get in that I formation and short yardage and go get that yard when you need it. I know Emmett can, but can we have another guy like Genatone that can? So I'm really pleased with that room. I have some concerns. That's not the concern for me.
So there you have it. I mean, I think his concern, he mentioned it before, is tackling. Right now, he thinks the backs are doing a hell of a job. And he did mention Quentin Ives' injury. Real quick, we'll just give you the update on Quentin Ives, that injury, and what he thinks he can look like when he returns. Because he was kind of that guy slotted at number 2. So with his injury during fall camp, unfortunate timing, but when he returns, think he can be an elite back. Here's Matt Rule on him.
What we know, Quentin's talented. I think it's just, like I said, we have 5 days left of like pure training camp, right? We have 9 days left till game week. So it comes down to, where you are at that time. You can't control when you have an injury. You can certainly try to prehab and not get hurt and sleep and hydrate and do all things that, if you get 8 hours of sleep, if you get less than 8 hours of sleep, you're 1.7 times more likely is what Mitch tells the guys to get an injury. So I guess that's almost twice. I'm not great with math, but that's almost twice. And so, you can try your best to avoid injuries. When you have it, you have to rehab and get back as soon as possible. But, on good teams, we think, we are a good team. On good teams, there's a lot of competition. And if you are out for a while, someone else is going to step up, and that's their chance. And so if we went into a game right now, it would be those 3 guys would be playing the majority of the snaps. I don't know what tomorrow could bring. A guy could pull his hamstring tomorrow. They could walk in and say so-and-so hurt his hand. So I never get too caught up in the depth, especially early on. I'm more like, hey, everyone get better. And I don't like when the players get caught up in the depth. They're like, well, this guy's here, this guy's here. Just, am I a great player? If I'm not a great player, become a great player, and we'll find a way to get great players on the field. So I do think he has some catching up to do. I do think, and that's not about him. It's just about what the other guys have done. They've done a great job. But we'll need a lot of guys this year. It's going to be a physical year. We play some great teams.
So you have it. Kind of backwards from, I think, what most people thought, right? I could be wrong on it, but I think most people slot him in as that running back 2, and then injury, bad timing. And it sounds like a lot of the other backs are competing and taking over his spot already, which is unfortunate for Ives with the injury that he can't really fight back right now. But on the positive spin of that, you're seeing that this running back room does not seem to be a problem for Matt Rule. It seems like one of the highlights of the offense, which is phenomenal. I think when you saw that with Dana Holgorsen as well, the running back room got much better, or the run game, I shouldn't just say, because he was on it with Isaiah Nayor and Jamal Banks. I mean, he came out here first week, said, for how big our wide receivers are, they can't block. And I'm paraphrasing here, but that's pretty much what you got after him. And you can do that as an outsider walking into the room, because he wasn't there. He showed up and he straight up called him out. And they got much better. To Isaiah Nayor's credit and Jamal Banks' credit, like, they played pretty well towards the end of the year in terms of run block. Sometimes you could tell they were trying a little too hard after getting challenged to get some penalties, but I'd rather see the guys trying out there and taking a 5-yard penalty as opposed to someone getting blown up in the backfield for a loss of -5 yards. So there's a difference there. I take the penalty over my guy getting smoked for a loss of yards every time. You want to clean up. My best solution is no penalty and you get the block, but at least the effort was there. And they did have some good moments too, where they really did a good job sealing that edge and letting their running back get into a lane and run upfield. Another update for your Royals. They did just hit, I'm not sure if it was a home run, but they got a couple more runs in at the very least. Now 6-4 over the Washington Nationals. So it was 4-4 last time I checked. Still bottom of the 6th inning. So far, the Kansas City Royals, they were down 2-0. They struck back in the 2nd inning. They got 2 to tie it up 2-2. And that was the stalled out all the way into the 6th inning. And at the bottom of the 6th, Royals Nationals put up 2 more in that 5th inning to make it a 4-0 or a 2-4 game. And then the Royals in this 6th inning have been doing most of their damage. They've gotten 4 at the bottom of the 6th in the inning. It's still going on here. So maybe the Royals can go on a bit of a run, gives themselves a cushion over the struggling Washington Nationals. That being said, we're going to keep on rolling here with Husker football. And again, his comments on just that running back room give you a lot of hope about how high he is on those guys. And, you get some other guys in there that they got moved. You heard it from some of the position coaches themselves, how they didn't really enjoy having some of their guys get pulled over to the running back room. But that was where Matt Rule thought the best fit was. So that being said, I do believe this one's pretty long. We'll play it through here. But here's Matt Rule on Jamar Mosey.
Yes, thank you. I'll say this. The first time I met Jamar Mosey, we were going there because obviously they had Isaiah, but they had some older guys. They had Williams was the same year, but they had some other guys. And I remember talking to him. We were talking about music, and we were talking about books, and we were talking about coaching. And I walked out, and I can't remember which coach I was with. And I said, I would hire that guy. And if you go back and look at my history, the first year head coach at Temple, I hired Terry Smith, who's now the secondary coach at Penn State. I hired a high school coach right off the bat. Boom. I think high school coaches are the best coaches in football. My dad was a high school teacher and coach, and besides being a minister, my uncle's in the Pennsylvania High School Coaches Hall of Fame. My cousin went to the state championship game as the head coach at Bishop Carroll. I love high school football coaches. I go to Baylor. I hire 3 Texas high school football coaches right off the bat. Joey McGuire now is the head coach at Texas Tech. They do everything. They don't just coach. They lead, they mentor. They're not in it for the money. They're in it because they love the game. They love coaching. So I'm always looking for guys like that. And, obviously when I first got here, I hired Bob Wager, who I think is a great coach. And I believe he's at TCU right now. When I met Jamar, I said I would hire him. It was unique because, his son was also coming up. But, he went to UCF because they recognized what he could do. And I just love his demeanor and his personality. So we hired him while Isaiah was committed somewhere else. And, since the day he's been here, obviously he has a tremendous ability to help us in recruiting. He's also a really good football coach. He's been willing to move around multiple positions. But here's what I want to say. He came and he spoke to our team the other day. So I give coaches a different chance to speak to the team in the team meetings. They don't need to listen to me all the time. And it was probably the best I've ever heard a position coach talk to the team. It was mesmerizing. It's absolutely mesmerizing. We had Jerry Madelon with us, who was doing some media training. Jerry's 30-year producer at ESPN, 7 Emmys, now an NFL network. He started working with me at Carolina to help me as I was under the gun in Carolina. And, I just, things weren't going well. And so he works with a lot of guys who work with me in terms of presentation. So I brought him in to help our players or do, every year we do media training. And he sat in the back and he was like, oh my gosh, who was that? So it would not be doing him a disservice to say, well, Coach Mosey's a great recruiter. He's great with the guys. He's great at everything he does. He has one role right now. When I got up, and I don't want to embarrass him, but I'd want to embarrass him. As I walked up, I said to the guys, because he talked about, Mitch, hey, this is my role right now. But someday I want a bigger role, but I'm going to accept this role and attack this role. I said to the guys, I said, does anyone doubt that he'd be a great college football head coach? And every kid was like, yes. Because our job is really to have a vision, to put it into place, to communicate with the players. He's amazing at that. Kansas City is a really important place for us, out into St. Louis. I have, when I got here, a lot of the Kansas City high school coaches had talked about how we hadn't been there for a while. I have to give a lot of credit to Bill Bush. Bill Bush opened that back up. So he went out, he got Jaden, he got some guys, and a lot of coaches said, hey, it's great to have him back. We started going down. I would fly down and speak at a clinic. Rob was doing a good job down there. Keith Williams is a game changer for us. But having Jamar there, I think the relationships are important. That game against Cincinnati, it was a COVID game. We were talking at first on the previous administration about returning the game here. And I was like, let's do a neutral site game, which is, that's what Alabama does. That's what those guys do. They do neutral site non-conference games. I wanted St. Louis or Kansas City. It wasn't available at first, Indianapolis. And then when Troy came in, he found a way to make it happen. So there's nothing more important to us than Kansas City, St. Louis, those areas in recruiting, right? It's so close. It's drivable.
There we go. I'll fade that down. He goes on for quite a bit more, but I want to play that one because it's interesting when you have we get lost in Matt Rule. He's the head coach. Mike Eckler, he's the special teams coordinator. Dana Holgerson, he's the offensive coordinator. And, John Butler's taken over that defensive coordinator. And you lose spots of, there's a lot of staff on this team that makes the thing run. And even shouts out Bill Bush. Shout out Bill Bush, obviously one of the co-hosts of Early Break, and opening that door back up to Kansas City. And I want to play it because it's, you rarely hear that high of praise from Matt. I mean, Matt Rule just gushed about that guy, and I had to cut it short. I mean, he gushes about the guy for about 3 minutes and 50 seconds, and rightfully so. I mean, if he's doing this much work, if he's inspiring players to this level, if you got a ESPN director who's won 7 Emmys and he's looking at this guy like, who the hell was that? That guy's incredible. You got something there. Unfortunately, I don't know how long we can keep this guy here, but I'll tell you what, he's sitting there as a senior football assistant right now at the University of Nebraska, and every second sounds like that he's putting in is only making this team better. And that's the difference. If you actually want to go ahead and beat the Ohio States, the Michigans, it's not a great coach. It's not a great offensive coordinator, defense. It's a great everything. I mean, it's top to bottom, top management. Everybody knows what their role is, and you need guys like that. So shout out Jamar Mosey. I don't think a lot of people knew really how important he must have been on this team. I certainly found a lot just from that audio right there itself. And shout out Matt Rule for making sure that his guys are getting noticed and really highlighting their value on the team. And it sounds like, he said it to be his disservice just calling him a great recruiter because he does much more than that. Sounds like he's a real leader throughout that entire program, not just to the players, but to the other coaches as well. So it's good to hear that stuff. You know, you get lost in the big names and the guys who are making the most money, but every now and then you get reminded, someone gets a shout out, and rarely do you get this big of a shout out, and clearly he's having a huge impact for the University of Nebraska's football program right now. And it's great to hear those things coming from a position that's just a senior assistant coach out there. So, or senior football assistant, obviously. But no, shout out Jamar Mosey, Matt Rule, and we just got to hope and see. You know, you like to hear this stuff. We still got to verify it on a Saturday. And Kansas City, Cincinnati, talked about it before. I think Cincinnati would be desperate, and I think Nebraska has to go out there and they have to prove a point that year 3 serious. It's not a joke. And if they lose to Cincinnati, that year 3 talk kind of gets thrown out the window by the national media pretty much right away. So you got to make sure you take care of business. Then you can possibly set yourself up for going 3-0 in that stretch. Then you get Michigan at home. And then that's the game. If you beat Michigan at home, you can bang on your chest. You can say, we've arrived. We haven't finished, but we've arrived. And we just haven't had that moment. I was talking to Tristan 6-7. What was the last big game that Nebraska won? The last game that put Nebraska on the map. That was a statement win. I think you have to go back to like 2019, 2018. Or excuse me, no, 28. It'd have to go way back, like 2016 maybe. Oregon. And Oregon, that was a game where Oregon, it was at home, class act by Oregon. They were ranked pretty high at the time. Season turned out, Oregon wasn't actually all that great, but that was at least the early statement win for Nebraska to point to everybody like, look, we compete with some of the best teams out there. Ironically, they weren't one of the best teams out there, but like that's me. You kind of got to reach for that stuff. What was the last significant Nebraska football win? Can't really name any. So you got an opportunity there. Set yourself up, beat Cincinnati, and then all of a sudden you got Michigan at your door again, and you can really say something. Michigan ranked 14 in the preseason AP poll, and of course, if they take care of business in their non-con, they should only move up or stay the same, unless they drop one of those games miraculously. But with that being said, we got to throw it to another break here. Your Royals still 6-4, top of the 7th inning. Nationals up to bat here. Don't go anywhere. Harrison Arens on the 1s and 2s going solo. Talk to you guys on the other side.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com, inviting you to join us here on 93.7 The Ticket every Saturday morning now in our new time. We're on from 8 to 9 with the weekly Husker Online radio show. We'll give you the latest in recruiting. We'll talk about what's going on with both football, basketball, and we'll probably share a few stories from the inside. It's every Saturday morning right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It's the Husker Online radio show from 8 to 9 a.m.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
If you're a veteran, our nation has created a wide range of benefits to thank you for your service, but it can be difficult to navigate the process of determining eligibility, filing claims, appealing decisions, and securing the benefits you've earned. Speak to your county veteran service officer or the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs State Service Office to see what's available to you and your family. These services are 100% free, so visit veterans.nebraska.gov today. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids. First, I hold my hands out like they're on a steering wheel. Then I look over my shoulder. Next, I put it in reverse. Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
There's no better way to spark a child's imagination than to get lost in the adventure of a good book. I'm Jenny Benson, president of NSEA. Working together, parents and teachers can help every child succeed. You can help by reading to your child and let your child read to you. Encourage reading in your home and make it a priority. Make reading fun and a time that you and your child look forward to spending together.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
A Shiro's work is never done. You care for the house, the kids, and our future. We're so grateful for all you do. Now it's time to care for yourself and save a little more for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to boost your retirement savings now. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro today.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job?
Not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
Or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? Or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hungered in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Serve Nebraska believes that volunteers are part of what makes Nebraska great. Each year, the Step Forward Awards honors volunteers from across the state who serve their communities in outstanding ways. We hope you'll join us this year at the Step Forward Awards luncheon on October 27th in Omaha. Help us thank volunteers with a celebration to remember. To register, visit serve.nebraska.gov and click Register Now. We hope to see you there. Paid for by Serve Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Back to the Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome in. Harrison Arens on the ones and twos, wrapping up here. We only got a few more minutes left, going solo, and just going to wrap up talking about what's selling right now, and that's Husker football and Husker volleyball. I can't leave those guys out of the mix. I mean, they sold out the Husker red and white scrimmage pretty resoundingly. I mean, it was a packed house in there. So those guys bound to set off some great numbers as well. And like I said, it's one of the profitable ones and a very profitable volleyball programs across the country here. So, of course, never want to leave those guys out of the mix, along with all their other fall sports. But another quick update. Again, apologies for the Royals. If you're here for the Kansas City Royals, said it 100 times, but I hate people like chiming in randomly and they're like wanting to hear the Kansas City Royals and they hear my voice and they're just, instantly pissed off. I want to know what the hell's going on here. Who's this knucklehead talking to me? Weather was the problem. Can't fix that, but we can remedy it with a little bit of patience and time. And like I said, I think we should have the Royals back for you sooner than later. Just a little bit unfortunate with the timing over the weekend. Get a couple of mean storms in a row. Gonna mess things up, but we are working on it, and we do get a plan. It's just a matter of time, waiting on the right part. We did have Dan from Canopy chime in earlier. He said he's got duct tape and some hay and some baling wires. He's gonna give it a shot. So if Dan from Canopy succeeds, then hey, give him a thanks. But nonetheless, we're gonna keep it moving. Couple of minutes left here. Memorial Stadium, the renovation. Some people got heated. I was talking about this earlier. Some people really, really hate the seating. And I'm curious, 402-464-5685. What is your Memorial Stadium experience when you go watch a game? Like, is the seating that big of a deal? Because I'm coming in there. I'm probably like, $180. I'm a thin frame, 60. I'm not like a big guy. So to me, it doesn't really bother me that much. And I stand a lot of the times. So I'm not worried about bleacher butt on the benches because I'm standing. But I can get it. If you're older and you want to actually enjoy the experience, like you're not a young college kid who wants to be sardine in there, fair enough. Do you guys like the idea of going with the original Trev Alberts plan? And Trev Alberts' plan is we're going to lower capacity. We're going to basically make more spaces for seating, remove the numbered benches and get some actual seats in there. Or do you like the Troy Dannon approach or pause it all? We're going to not just fix some of the minor stuff. We're going to go all in, but because we're going to go all in, it's going to take a lot of patience, and we can't do it right now because we just went through a major renovation, obviously with the practice facilities, nutrition tables, all that good stuff that, we got to see the drone footage for, and the drone footage is, the drone's flying through there. The minute still takes it's like 5 minutes to get through it. I mean, the place is massive. So you can understand the amount of money that went into that. But you maybe still be able to pull off the Trev Alberts plan. And to my surprise, I think some people really did want that. They're like, I don't give a damn about a major renovation. I just want more room. I like the idea of being patient with it. I still think it's one of the best fan experiences that you can possibly get. But I could be a bigger minority on that than I may have realized. So if you guys have any thoughts on it, you can let me know. I personally, I like the idea of pausing and waiting. We also are adding alcohol to the stadium. It's another thing to process. Like, alcohol in the stadium is phenomenal, but at the same time, you want to make sure you're set up for it. Like, if anyone remembers, there's a country artist who pulled up. I always forget who that country artist was. Sold out Memorial Stadium. I'm sure it was a great concert for everybody who went there. Could not get enough beers, though. Beers, there's no taps. So everything was just being on coolers, bringing up and down. They were having shortages. They were, having a tough time keeping up. I mean, it's the Midwest. I'll say it. People like to drink in the Midwest a little bit more than they do on the East or West Coast. It's the Midwest. You get yourself a light beer. People like to party that way. If you don't have taps, that's kind of a nightmare situation. I mean, that's a lot of inventory that you got to figure out how to store and keep cool and make sure your shipments are getting in there on time. If you don't have that tap fully set up, and I'm not just talking a few taps. I mean, you got to get that stadium rigged so you don't have to have people from the north side walking all the way to the south side to get their beverage. Like, it takes time to do this stuff, and I think that's why the bigger stadium renovation is more important than just going for a little bit right now and fixing the cosmetics. Because if we're going to add alcohol to the stadium, I'm not saying like I'm yay or nay for it. To be honest, I've always been pretty indifferent because I got to work anyway. So it's not like I'm going to go get hammered at any of these games. But it's never been like a deal breaker. But that stuff it's a little more complicated than I think some people may realize. And it's a little hard, especially when you're dealing with an old Memorial Stadium. We even saw that at the Pinnacle Bank Arena. It wasn't a smooth process when we first got alcohol. A lot of people had complaints. The lines were too long. Now take the PBA tennis and go to Memorial Stadium. Now imagine what those lines. Imagine if they don't have it set up properly during a Memorial Stadium game when they start selling alcohol. Those lines are going to be huge. People are going to be upset. People are just going to be all wedged into the common areas because it's taking too long. The seats are going to be empty when the game actually starts. Like, you want to avoid that at all costs. So there is some, and that's where I fall on all this. Like, we're doing a ton. So let's be a little bit patient. And if we win games, we can do even more. And if you trust in Matt Rule and the staff, and I think that's why the facilities and the training table, all that stuff was first, because that stuff's going to have a chance to maybe actually help you out with some winning. So I'm all for it. I'd rather be patient than lose out on something that could be really epic down the road because we lacked that patience. With that being said, though, that's all I got on Husker football. We spent a full hour on it, but we are that close to it. I mean, really 9 days away until it's that week of Cincinnati. And we're going to be talking about it a lot here on 93.7 The Ticket for obvious reasons. Your final update for the Kansas City Royals, 4-6. They are still leading over the Washington Nationals. They are sitting there with a record of 58-60. And again, the Washington Nationals 47-70. Bottom of the seventh inning, Royals up to bat here, still 6-4. Appreciate you guys listening. Don't go anywhere, though. We'll keep it local. We'll keep it live. We got more Best of the Ticket coming your way next.